Yeah.
Jenga, get out of here.
That's
All right. Cool. I think we are good to go. Okay. So, Darcy, what's going on, everybody? We're going to get started here in just a second. Let me see if I can pull that up on here. Can you see it, Darcy?
No luck.
Oh, sweet. Here we go.
There we are. That looks like us. That looks like us about 15 seconds ago.
Right. Oh, good to know that the cool. Yes, I'll be able to leave it just like that, so it'll be delayed. But if anyone live tunes in,
cool.
They can just post comments in there to have us answer. Alrighty, so we'll go ahead and get going, everybody. So I am Dr. Shane Kurth, owner of Apex Chiropractic. This is Darcy Jones. She is one of the co-owners of Fixt movement down the road. And this is Lex, and tell me your last name again?
Lex Pelger.
Lex Pelger. And I'm going to he's with BlueBird Botanicals. I'm going to let him tell you guys a little bit more about what BlueBird Botanicals is about. And this is a CBD webinar, so if you're tuning in, feel free to post any questions that you have in the comments. We have a list of about 15 or 30 questions that some of our patients and practice members have come up with, and it's a very hot topic right now. So with that being said, I'll let Lex tell you guys a little bit more about what they're doing over there.
Great, thanks. So I'm head of education at BlueBird Botanicals, and we're actually just up the road here, not too far away, in Louisville, Colorado. And we create hemp extracts. And just the words can often confuse people when people talk about marijuana versus hemp. It's all cannabis plant. The only difference between marijuana and hemp is the amount of THC in the plant. If it's below 0.3% THC, then it's hemp. If it's above, it's marijuana. But it's all really the cannabis plant. And so we make full plant extracts. So we try to get out all of the cannabinoids, all the terpenes that make cannabis such a special plant for human health. And primarily we do this into an oil. But we also have CBD isolate, we have CBD capsules, we have CBD vape juice, which is a good fast method. And so one product I think is especially special is we also have something called our CBD Complete, and it's actually half CBD and half CBD acid. And the interesting part about the acids is that they are the raw version of the molecule directly from the plant. And so for some people's systems, CBD alone isn't enough, and something about adding CBD acid is just what their system needs. And a nice thing about BlueBird and working for them, it's a really nice company. They take care of their employees. People love the customer service. You can call in with any questions you have, and people will answer it all day. And we also really take pride in our quality. Third-party testing, batch system. So every single bottle you get from BlueBird, you can look up all of the testing results, not just for potency, but also for contaminants and pesticides and heavy metals and things like that. So you really know you're getting a good, safe, clean product for trying out CBD.
Awesome. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and start asking some questions. So one of the biggest ones, obviously, a lot of people have, will taking CBD on a daily basis make you fail a drug test?
That's a great question, and we get it a lot. And it is possible. It's unlikely to happen because it is a minor amount of THC, but you really can't remove THC from the plant completely. And in fact, it's part of the thing that we believe in. They call it the entourage effect, and that's the idea that all the cannabinoids and all the terpenes from the plant work together to do better than the isolated molecules. And so it seems like a little bit of THC helps everything work better, but that means that THC is in there. So people are taking large amounts every day. It is possible for them to fail a drug test. And if someone has a CDL license for driving a truck, or works for the federal government, or on a construction site, and they can't risk even one false positive, you have to try something like the CBD isolate or the CBD vape juice that has no THC in it, no detectable THC in it.
Good to know there's some alternatives out there. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that even though with this legal product and a legal amount of THC, people can still lose their jobs. The drug testing laws haven't nearly caught up to the laws around marijuana or hemp, and that might take a long time.
Absolutely.
And that's a perfect transition to the next one. Is it legal?
Yes. The great part is that the 2014 Farm Bill already authorized CBD that's sourced from industrial hemp, but then they just passed the 2018 Farm Bill, and that was really an amazing bill for further affirming the legality of hemp and making it a full long-term solution. So any CBD coming from hemp plant in this country is legal. So hemp just got a gigantic legislative win that enshrines it as one more agricultural product that we do safety testing on, and we treat like a plant, but has nothing to do with the scheduling system, the DEA, or anything like that.
Awesome. And then does that go true for throughout the U.S.?
Correct. Yeah. States can put in more aggressive laws. We actually won't ship to South Dakota still because they did put in laws that were so negative, and our CEO wants to play it cautious, and it probably would be fine, but just in case, we're not shipping to South Dakota. But in general, according to the federal government, this is a completely legal product that can be shipped anywhere.
Cool. And next question: Can you get stoned off of taking any amount of CBD?
It's a good question. It is possible, again, because there is that little amount of THC. If people are taking our regular strength products, it's very unlikely that they would get high. But we do have 6X versions of all of our oil blends, and so it's for people who know that they need more like 50 milligrams of CBD each day. And so then they can just take 1 or 2 dropperfuls to get that amount instead of 10 or 12 dropperfuls. But when you're talking about that much, you were talking about maybe a couple of milligrams of THC. And when people are buying, candies from a legal recreational shop or something like that, sometimes they're being sold as low as 1 or 2 milligrams of THC. So if somebody's sensitive, they could feel that. And overall, the cannabinoids are such non-toxic compounds. It's kind of amazing. But THC, it's not toxic. It's not going to, kill you. It's not going to do long-term harm. But it could get you stoned. And for some people, that is exactly what they don't want. Others think it's a nice side benefit. But, if you're trying to introduce elderly relatives to this, the last thing you would do is want to get them stoned because they might never try it again. And it could be something that's really helpful for them.
Cool. And then before you ask, we got some people tuned in live. I'm just going to take their questions first.
Oh, great.
How you doing, Lauren? So Lauren wants to know, does the CBD that is mailed between states have THC, or does it have a minuscule amount?
Good question. It is the minuscule amount because the source that they're getting it from has to be a hemp plant. So it has to have less than 0.3% THC by dry weight. And so if it's a well-made extract, there should be a little bit of THC in there.
Sure.
And thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill, they made it completely legal that little bit of THC is fine to mail across state lines.
Cool.
Nice.
Darcy,
All
ask
right.
the next one.
How much CBD should a person take a day?
That's a great question. And the hard part is that it's completely different for everybody.
Right.
We always tell people to start small and slowly increase your amount. Our recommended serving size is 15 drops twice a day, which total will give you about 8.5 milligrams of CBD. And for a lot of people, kids and elderly folks especially, that's all they need. They just need a small amount of CBD.
Is that more for just general wellness or general
Yeah, general health and wellness. And for some people, that small amount can make a huge difference in their health. But for other people, for whatever's happening with them, they might need something more like 15, 20, 50 milligrams of CBD. And it's safe to do that. You don't want to be taking more than you have to, mostly financially. It's safe to take more. It's just, it's not an easy plant to grow. And so even though our company has some of the best prices per milligram in the entire industry, it's still not an inexpensive product. And so you want to start small, slowly work your way up, and find that sweet spot that works for you. The thing about it is your sweet spot's going to be completely different.
Sure.
Because everyone has an endogenous cannabinoid system. They only discovered the basics of it about 25 years ago. But we use cannabinoids as a signaling system in our body that's a very important system. As we learn more, it ties together the neuronal system, the immune system, and the hormonal system. And so whatever it is, it's very important. And it seems like the cannabinoids are so helpful for health because they interact with that system. And so since everybody's system is different, only you are going to be the best judge of what works for you. Your doctor and the people at BlueBird, they're only going to be guessing and making the best recommendations on what might help. But your journal of how much you're taking and what days are the best for you, that's going to be the best evidence. No one else is going to do better than you paying attention to yourself.
Cool. So let's say I have severe anxiety, Darcy has severe anxiety, what we would take would be completely different, or could be completely different on how it's going to affect either one of us.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, some people just need the tiniest bit, and which is a great thing to see.
Cool. And can you take too much? Is there like a limit or a ballpark? Like, hey, you definitely, there's no points. It's not going to do any more to you if you take this much versus this much, or
It's there isn't really a toxicological limit. We do have limits because of California laws about how many serving sizes we recommend, and that's mostly because of things like lead that's in everything now. So we can't tell people to take 30 or 40 servings because it would actually put you over the California lead levels.
Yeah.
That's what keeps it low.
Gotcha.
But in terms of what works for people's systems, they can really experiment with what works for them. The main thing they have to watch out for is THC. If they don't like the feeling of the THC being psychoactive, then that's the thing you're watching for. And if you start to feel it a tiny bit, then you just back down from that level, and then you don't have to worry about it.
Sure. And Lauren would also like to know, and I know we just talked about this a touch, but she said for a teenager about 90 pounds, what would be a good recommended starting dose?
Then I would say the serving size, I'd say start more like 5 drops. We recommend 15 drops for
Of your regular strength?
Yeah,
product.
just the regular, then you're talking a couple of milligrams of CBD, and especially for younger people, it's always good to start as small as possible, just a couple of drops and see how it goes. Good chance it won't make a big difference, but it's good to let the body get used to the cannabinoids and kind of build up in your system. For some people, it takes a couple of weeks to really see effects. Oftentimes people take it and they have a much better day and they're just, they keep taking it. But for some people's systems, it might be your endogenous cannabinoids are just low, and it takes a little while using hemp CBD to build up those levels and kind of get you to a spot of balance.
Cool.
So once you've tried it for about 3 weeks, you're probably getting into that range. But I always worry that people aren't taking enough or they're not taking it for long enough when a little bit more or longer might help.
Gotcha.
I mean, eventually, it doesn't work for everybody, of course. Nothing's a panacea. But it is worth trying it at larger levels just in case that might be what works for your system.
Cool. And Lauren, about 30% of my practice is pediatric, and we definitely have quite a few open-minded parents that bring their kids in here, and quite a few of them have actually, we carry BlueBird Botanicals products in here, and quite a few of them have started, giving a few drops a day to their children, some very, very young, others that are teenagers, and we've heard nothing but excellent results from what the parents are telling us, how their kids are responding to the little dosages of CBD.
Yeah, there are a lot of parents out there that are trying this now, and we can't and won't make any medical claims about these products because of the FDA, so I won't talk about exactly how these are getting used. The nice part is there is a wide community of parents out there, and they're all on blogs and forums talking about this, and I think the best advice is going to be out there from a bunch of other people who've tried a bunch of other things similar to what you're dealing with, and that's where the best advice is. 20 other people really dove in, and you see what works for them, and you can figure out what might work for you.
Very nice. Can CBD help with digestion?
That might be too much of a medical claim,
Okay.
but I would say it does seem to help with overall body homeostasis. That sense
Cool.
of balance is such an important part of human health, and the cannabinoids seem really helpful for that.
Nice.
Cool. When is the best time to take CBD oil? And should it be taken multiple times throughout the day or just once a day?
Awesome. This is actually the other main, I wouldn't say warning, but thing to watch out for is that these cannabinoids affect everybody's sleep and energy levels differently. And so for me, I usually don't take them after 5 p.m. because it might be activating like a cup of tea and not the best thing before bed. My wife loves to take them before bed, and it works well for her. And then for the last third of people, it doesn't affect their sleep or energy levels at all. And so you have no way to know which category you might fall into. It's just worth paying attention to, especially if you're helping your aunt or uncle or grandparents try it. That usually we recommend twice a day, but for some people, they need 3 or 4 times a day, or they don't like the morning, or they don't like the evening.
Right.
And I think after a couple days of experimentation, you'll find out which one category you're in, if any. Most people, this doesn't affect their sleep or energy that much, but it's something to pay attention to.
Okay.
What should I expect to feel when I am just starting to take CBD? So
Better.
New to the product. Good answer.
That's what we hope. And we hear that story a lot of people saying that first day was just a much better day than I'd been having. But then for a lot of people, it's very subtle, if anything at all. I know some people take it like they take their fish oil. It's not like it's changing their life. They just believe that it's a long-term, excellent tool for health. And personally, I think it's especially helpful for people who are aging. I know one old grower up the road, Bill Althouse, and he says if you're over 50 and you're not getting 50 milligrams of CBD in your system every day, you're crazy. And so it does seem to be particularly helpful for that age group. But it might not be something that you notice that much. It's just something that when you look at the evidence of what we know about how the cannabinoids work, you decide that I think this is worth having as a supplement in my life, even if I don't see it doing a ton of hands-on changes.
Yeah, and that's how it is for me. I've been taking pretty good amount of CBD for 6 months now, and I definitely calms me down a little bit. But besides that, you know, some people, it's not many things out there are going to do a miracle for you. I've had some of my patients who've been in chronic pain that take it and they come back in the next day and they're like, the first time this pain has gone away completely. And so it is definitely a little bit different for everybody, but it's one of those things that's healthy for you, whether you feel differences or not.
Yeah, I think one of the fastest growing groups is young people and millennials who are into body hacking. We get a lot of those questions, a lot of forums about it. They're mixing up all of these different supplements. CBD is one that really goes into that category as well. Some people really just help it as a way to make their days more sharp and focused, which I think is fascinating.
And before we get to the next one, Lauren was saying, you know, we gave her, as she was talking about the 90-year-old teenager to get started, if they were going to be taking capsules instead of the oil, I guess how many milligrams would they want to, for a capsule form, would she want to start with?
Yeah, then I'd start with one capsule. Our capsules come in at 15 milligrams per capsule, and that's still a good amount for somebody of that size.
Okay.
So I would. The nice part of it, the main reason we have capsules is for the people who don't enjoy the natural planty flavors of the oil.
Sure.
I mean, they very much taste like a plant, and because they're so rich in terpenes, and terpenes give the smell to so many plants, but chemists often say that terpenes smell good, but they don't taste that good. And so some people don't like that natural planty flavor, and so that's why we have the capsules. But I always say that I think if it tasted good, it wouldn't work. So, you know, the flavor is something that you
I go
get
by
used to
that
pretty
too.
quickly.
I go
Yeah.
by that too.
I'm going to kind of go out of order and just touch on this one because you kind of have already talked about it, but I get this question a lot from people, which is that specificity around why some people feel, you know, that immediate, which you have kind of said, but you know, like the person that's like, oh wow, it changed completely, I have no pain, and then there's the people that, you know, still have that same amount of body awareness, if not more, and they're kind of like, I've been taking it for a month and I don't really feel a difference.
Yeah. It's hard to tell, and I don't think science would have an answer except that everyone's endocannabinoid system is so different. And just like I know when they say in chiropractic, everybody's body is screwed up in a different way, you know, and using it in a different way. I think everyone's endocannabinoid system is slightly different. Your receptors might be different between different people. The layout and number of them.
And while you're speaking on this, the next question is, what is an endocannabinoid system? Does everybody have one? So I know a lot of people don't even know what that is, what it means. So I'll let you kind of keep expanding on that topic for a second.
Great, that sounds good, because that's what I write books about, actually. That's what got me into this.
Awesome.
That's actually so I have graphic novels about the endocannabinoid system, and they're based on Moby Dick, because only Moby Dick is big enough to get the entire human history with cannabis and the science of the endocannabinoid system. And so I guess I'll give the short explanation of how we found it to kind of help understand why it's so important. And it actually follows the story of the opium plant in a way, because opium and cannabis are two of the oldest plants that humans have used, except opium's easier to study because the active ingredient is morphine, and it's a drug that goes into water. So around 1900, they isolated it, and they could start studying it, and they used that to find the human endorphin system. And so morphine from the opium plant was used to find our own pain control system. And the exact same story happened with cannabis. It only happened 60 years later because the cannabinoids are lipids. They're fats. And so fats are they're harder to isolate in a test tube, they're harder to work with, they're slippery, really. And so it was in 1964 that Dr. Raphael Mechoulam's team isolated and synthesized, just synthesized THC and CBD. And once you can make it in the lab, then you could really test it on humans and in animals and see what it does. And so it's a little bit like if the human brain was an ocean that was filled with unknown fish and how everything moves. We know something about how the ocean works. We know something about how the brain works, but not that much. And so THC was a little bit like a hook that we could drop into the ocean and to see why do humans get high off of pot in so many different ways. Everybody gets affected differently. Most drugs of recreation, you pretty much know what you're getting into. Cannabis affects everybody differently. And the reason we realize that is that hook, what we pulled up first was the CB1 receptors. And those are the ones that actually get people high. If you activate someone's CB1 receptor, that's a cannabis high. And it turns out that CB1 receptors are some of the most widespread receptors on the top of the human brain. And most of the higher areas of your brain have CB1 receptors, and they have them in different concentrations. And that's why some people always get hungry, and some people always get happy, and some people always get sleepy, is because there are different levels of CB1 receptors. And then after that, we found the CB2 receptors, which are on all of the organs of the body, and somehow are tied into the immune system. A lot of this stuff has been a lot of studies, but even a lot of studies only get us so far. And so if there are receptors in the brain and body, there must be endogenous molecules made by the brain that interacts with them. The brain isn't waiting around for humans to find the cannabis plant and start getting high off this cannabinoid in it. It must be producing its own cannabinoid. And so the first one they found, they labeled anandamide. So that was the first endogenous neurotransmitter that is a cannabinoid. And that's why that's my great white whale, is anandamide. And so they found one more called 2-AG, and those are the two best known. And so we have 2 receptors and 2 neurotransmitters that are very well studied, and then a couple more that aren't as well studied. But they're so spread across the brain and body, and they interact with so many different systems that I know Bill Althouse up the road again, he said, if you told me that the endocannabinoid system is where the body and brain meet the soul, I would believe you. And I like that line because it's not a medical claim, but it's just crazy enough to be true. And so what we know about the endocannabinoid system is that it functions like a balance and homeostasis system for the body. And that's why cannabis seems to be so helpful for human health, is that in so many places where somebody might be slightly out of whack, it restores balance. And balance is usually what the body is seeking. And so that's why humans have been using cannabis for so long, and that's why I think it's so exciting that this CBD molecule is finally really getting out there and positively affecting people's health.
Is CBD or marijuana the only way to stimulate the endocannabinoid system, or are there other things that will have a similar or the same effect to that system?
It's actually, one of the most fascinating ones is chocolate. Chocolate is the only source of anandamide outside the brains of any mammal. So all mammals have an endocannabinoid system, not just humans. So that's how far back in evolutionary history it goes. And so there's a couple of plant sources of cannabinoids. They don't have much, but then in terms of food we eat, chocolate is actually a source of anandamide as well. One of the other main sources is in breast milk of women. 2-AG, the other cannabinoid I mentioned, is highly present in breast milk. And so it seems to be something that's helpful for an infant, is be getting a cannabinoid from their mother. And so it's part of the reason that breast milk is such a strong thing for children.
Very cool.
Cool. Can you elaborate on neurogenesis in CBD?
I can't.
Okay.
I can say that there's a lot of interactions with the endocannabinoid system in the brain.
Okay.
Feel free to send me a message or an email. Anybody who is listening, neurogenesis is an awesome topic, something we can't talk about live on the video feed right now, but it is something that we're going to dive into off camera a little bit later. And we're going to keep up with these questions. There are a lot of people tuned in.
Nice.
So are there major differences between the oils or smoking a CBD strain? Kind of like you're to smoke marijuana, there's all different strains, different effects. Is there something similar as far as the oils go and different CBD strains?
Okay. I think the question is mostly how's oils versus smoking in terms of getting into your body?
Yep.
Okay. It's nice because they're actually, I think, very complementary. For elderly folks who don't want to smoke anything, they can just take the oil. And the nice thing about an oil is it might take a little bit longer to get into your system, but it stays in your system for longer. That's why people only have to take it 2 or 3 times a day. The thing about vaping or smoking something is that it gets in your system so quickly. And so for people who need a fast shot of cannabinoids into their system, that's a great way to do it. And so I know for some people, they might combine both. They might be taking a certain amount of oil every day, and then when they feel like they need it, they'll vape or smoke something else.
Okay, and while we're on this topic, we have a lot of other questions that, what are the differences between the topicals, the ingestibles, smoking it, taking the oil? So I know we just compared and contrasted the ingestible oil as well as vaping or smoking it. Now, where do the topicals or taking a capsule come into play compared to the tinctures?
The capsules are pretty similar. The only real difference is they take a little bit longer to break down in your stomach, but it should just be oil in there wherever you're getting it from, and so that oil should still get into you in about the same manner. I think the topicals are fascinating and really important because the cannabinoids are lipids, they do well with your skin. They can kind of reach in there, and so I've heard it said that CBD topicals are kind of the gateway drug for medical marijuana for elderly folks. If your aunt might not take a hemp oil or a capsule, she might try a salve, and that might be the thing. If that salve is helpful, maybe then she'll try the CBD thing. Maybe even eventually she'll try the medical marijuana thing, and you can share a joint with your aunt and really figure out what's going on.
Very cool. I'll let you go ahead.
Do you have more on the? No.
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah, some of these are kind of touching on the same things. So taking CBD pills helps me sleep very well, but am I likely to develop a dependency?
It's an interesting question with dependency because...
And tolerance, I'd say, if you can speak
great.
on both of those.
Yeah.
And the difference between what each one of those means.
Yeah.
Anyone else doesn't know.
So for dependency, it would mean that the body really needs this to keep going. And so in kind of the classical sense of addiction and dependency, these don't cause dependency. Your body won't be craving it if you don't get CBD. But in the sense that CBD is a thing that your body finds helpful, and it's the only thing that works for what you're talking about, then yes, you need to keep taking it for it to work. But if you stop taking, your body won't be crying out for it. It just will go back to where it was before. And so in terms of tolerance, in general, we don't hear about tolerance developing. Tolerance is the idea that you need to keep taking more and more to achieve the same effect. It's of course famous in things like heroin and even smoking marijuana. Eventually you need to keep taking more, your body builds up a tolerance. That doesn't seem to happen with CBD. Usually people find the amount that works for them and they stick to it for months or years at a time, and that's works fine. But for some people, when they have more complicated things going on, they do need to play with it. It's not something I hear very often, but I think that can happen sometimes. But in general, I don't think people need to worry about tolerance. They just need to worry about finding the times of day and amounts that work for them, and then I think they kind of have it dialed in. It should keep you stable there.
Okay. We got another question from the live feed, and I might answer this one just so it's not biased, but it says, hi, can you pass a drug test with CBD oil? If you weren't tuned in at the beginning, make sure you rewatch the beginning. We covered that part. And also, where can you buy CBD oil of good quality? I have a friend. I have friends part of MLM selling some, but I don't want to buy junk. So simple enough. I've tried a lot of different companies. We go with BlueBird Botanicals. They've won some awards. They're based right here in Louisville, and they're is it an international company or just national?
No, national. It's too hard to ship this stuff.
Easy enough. So they're one of the largest distributors in the States. And we carry their products here. We carry their 6X strength as well as their regular strength, and we just carry the oils. So if you ever want to swing by the office, you're more than welcome to swing by here and grab some. And as far as the MLM companies go, I don't know what one you're talking about, but you always got to be careful with them. They all have great products, but a lot of times it's more or less how cheap can they make it and get it out there, and the components that go into the CBD oil as far as terpenes and all the other good stuff that needs to be in there for it to work the right way are very, very important. And we know that BlueBird Botanicals has the best of the best.
And I do think you need to be careful out there with buying CBD, because unfortunately, if you look up about the secret buyer studies that have happened, there have been a number of places like Consumer Reports will buy everybody's and test it, and the number of companies that are under labeling or have no cannabinoids in their batches is very high, scarily high. And so whatever company you want to buy from, the thing you want to look for is third-party batch testing. You need somebody who is testing everything that comes out of their facility, and so they know what's in there. And that's what really separates the best companies, I'd say.
Okay, and I have another random question. So for somebody who's been smoking marijuana for a long time, is their amount of CBD that they take going to have to be more than, let's say, somebody who's never smoked marijuana their whole life?
I think it'd be different for everybody, but in general, it probably wouldn't. The smoking the marijuana probably wouldn't have that big an effect, because most modern marijuana that's being sold recreationally has almost no CBD in it. Now there's been a comeback at recreational stores of having some CBD or high CBD strains. But the thing about the plant is it can only produce so many cannabinoids. It has a certain amount of starting material. And the modern genetics of the underground in the last 50 years have pushed that needle so it's producing almost only THC, because that's what people care about.
Sure.
But when you listen to someone like Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, he says what he wishes is that all modern cannabis had at least 1% CBD in it. You don't need a ton, but just a little bit to kind of mitigate that huge amount of THC.
Yeah, and it's like, why shouldn't it be in there, with all the positive properties that come?
Yeah, so for regular smokers, they should, I don't think this will be a big effect. I think taking CBD would be a nice addition to the cannabinoids you're getting and terpenes you're getting from smoking it.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. So again, kind of touched on it, but we'll be more specific. If you complement CBD with THC, will you get different or better medicinal effects in the body?
It does seem like all of the cannabinoids and terpenes work together for good. And it was a term coined called the entourage effect. And the idea that having CBD and CBG and CBN and CBC and CBD all in there really help. And then, I know I keep talking about the terpenes, I should define them. The terpenes are what give smell to almost all the plants and vegetables out there. And so it's this huge class of molecules, tens of thousands of different types of terpenes. And the cool part about the cannabis plant is it has an especially wide palette of terpenes in it. And that's why there's so many different types of marijuana out there. And they have all these different smells. It's because they have so many different terpenes to draw upon. And so I think the best companies, what really makes their product special is they can keep those delicate terpenes. If you're a good extractor, you can save those and get them into your supply. And even minor amounts of terpenes can change how the cannabinoids get in your system. And the terpenes can change things in you too. Just smelling lavender is good for people. It changes things slightly. And so having all those terpenes together, and I think the reason they call it the entourage effect, one scientist said, what the entourage effect really means is scientific hand waving saying, we don't really know, but it seems to work. And that's so much of biochemistry is we don't know the mechanisms of what's causing the good, but we can measure the good at the end. So we can tell that using all of these together seems to be more positive, but we couldn't tell exactly of all different pathways that these use, which ones are getting us to that endpoint.
Yeah, and this is exactly why we carry BlueBird Botanicals in here. I am a science and a research nut, probably read every CBD study that is out there, and it does all work together from everything that I have read. And there's a lot of CBD companies out there you got to be careful with. They can just get the straight CBD isolate, and there's absolutely nothing in there except the pure CBD, and it's not going to have the same medicinal effects that a good high-quality CBD product does. Why would somebody use a salve, cream, or lotion over ingesting the oil. And I wouldn't say, yeah, we can just start with that. Or why would they also use it paired with ingesting the oils, and how the effect's going to be different for, I guess, they're probably wondering about if they have bruise or pain or something that's like on a certain external part of the body.
It seems like they do different things, and so often people use them as a complement. Because if you put it on the outside, it hopefully does some good there, but in general, topicals don't last as long. People are applying topicals more often each day, more like a couple times a day, depending on what is happening for them. But then also attacking the problem from the inside. And I think that seems to be the best method. For some people, they only need one or the other method. But oftentimes, putting a topical and ingesting seems to be attacking the problem from both ends, and you can, if one or the other doesn't do it for you, you should definitely be trying both.
Cool. Yeah, and that's preaching to the choir on that one. Health always comes from the inside out, and right now America's approach has been and hopefully changes soon, but we are always thinking how to fix ourselves from the outside in, and you're not going to gain any ground like that.
Can I take it intermittently, like as needed, or should I always be using it regularly?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I like that.
And it can work intermittently, but most likely it's only going to work intermittently. So if you're using it for specific reasons, it will, feel free to take it for that time. It seems like in general for people, if it's a thing that they want it to stay changed permanently, they need to keep taking it. But the nice part is stopping is just going to, it'll just slowly be out of your system. So there isn't any problem if you miss days or anything like that. You just wouldn't be quite as topped up on your cannabinoids as might be ideal. But there's certainly no problem with stopping and starting if you only need it for one specific use.
Okay. We have a couple more target specific questions. How would CBD interact with my thyroid medication, or can it affect my epilepsy medication? Is that something you can touch on, or?
No, not really. But the advice we generally offer is talk to your pharmacist, even more than your doctors. Doctors often don't have as much knowledge in this area, but your pharmacist has access to big databases that look at every medication and interactions and things like that. And so it does not seem like there's any major ones. You don't have super risks, but there are things that can be affected, and it's worth talking to your pharmacist about and going over what you're taking.
Is it safe for pets?
Yes, in general. The thing about pets is that as long as they're mammals, we've even had we've had donkeys take it and horses and a kangaroo. That's it. Rufus the kangaroo took it at an animal farm down in Florida. And so since any animal has an endocannabinoid system, any mammal, it should be fine for pets to take it. The main advice is that just keep in mind their smaller size. So however many pounds they are compared to a human, use that much less. If you have a really big dog, you can give them about as much as you're giving a human. In general, it seems like they do process it the same way. Of course, the tough part is cats and the taste. So we do have capsules for them. But, everything about cats is tough. Yeah. But in general, once they realize it's helping them, they can sometimes not mind. I know we had one complaint where a woman said, I had a 12-year-old dog, and now we thought we were going to lose her, and now she's running around the house like a puppy and keeping us up all night. And so that was her main complaint. So it's certainly worth trying with pets. Again, you have to watch THC levels. If they do feel like they're looking groggy or something like that, they might be getting too much THC. They can be a little bit more susceptible to that because they're, of course, naive to it, or probably naive to it.
Cool. And you hear that, people? Give it to your pets. Anything that has an endocannabinoid system can benefit from CBD the same way that any mammal can benefit from chiropractic care. What we treat is the nervous system, and every cat, dog, whatever else is out there, plenty of them get adjusted. There's animal chiropractors, and that's another very important system to keep working at its highest level. And as far as giving CBD to pets, does it really matter? can you give them the same stuff that you take?
Yes, actually the labeled pet companion products that we have, that's simply our hemp classic oil. We just have to put a different label on it to get into pet stores.
Sure.
But we don't want to be giving
Okay.
anything different to our pets than we're giving to us.
Okay.
Cool. Does it interact or do anything to your metabolism?
That I can't really speak to as well. Yeah.
Can you talk about how CBD is metabolized by the body?
Yes. It like most drugs, it seems to go in through the stomach and then pass through the intestines and then the liver, and that's when it starts diffusing outward to where it's needed. And it's nice because it's a lipid. It's not quite as complicated in terms of how it's getting into the body. It seems to go in pretty readily. That's the nice thing about these fat type things is they just sluice in quite quickly. The thing to know about THC in regards to this is that when you eat or drink THC, when it goes through your liver, it's changed from delta 9 THC to delta 11 THC. And the delta 11 THC is 5 to 7 times more psychoactive. And so that's why if someone ate a brownie with a certain number of milligrams, they could get a lot more high than if they smoked a joint with the same number of milligrams in it. And so that's something to keep in mind. That's why the THC in our oil is a little bit more effective. Like I said, it normally doesn't affect people's psychoactivity, but it is something that could happen because it is getting made somewhat stronger.
Yes. Now, whenever all your friends come in from out of town, make sure you tell them to watch out for those edibles. They sneak up on you.
Don't pull Maureen out.
I know, it really does happen to every person I visit. On that subject, though, does CBD affect the liver negatively in any way?
Or are there any side effects, negative ones that can go along with it?
It doesn't seem like there's negative liver effects. The main thing that you'll hear about liver, and most companies don't talk about enough, and because most people don't know enough about it, is that it does seem to affect some of the CYP450 enzymes in the liver. And what's important about this class of enzymes, it's a huge class of a bunch of related enzymes, and they're responsible for activating drugs that come into the body and also clearing drugs out of the body. So it's a really important homeostasis system for drugs. And so some drugs that we take, they won't work until they get changed in your liver into something that actually works in your liver. And other drugs will build up to a toxic level if they don't get removed from your liver. And so those are the ones that can affect drugs in people's bodies. And so that's a system to pay attention to, but CBD only affects a couple of those, and there's hundreds of them. So that's one of the reasons to talk to your pharmacist about this, is that it can seem like slightly change how certain medications work.
Cool. So if anybody tuned in live out there, if you have any more questions, go ahead and post away. We're coming to the end of the questions that we have. So if you want anything else answered, make sure you go ahead and put it in there. Do you have any questions left on?
No, I think we got them
on
all.
your paper? Yeah, I think the last one I have is how long does it take to work in your system? But I'm pretty sure we covered that part already. And then on that note, do you have any questions
while we
that
have you here, I'm like,
ring
do
about?
I have any specific questions? I don't, but I'm excited to have learned so much in such a short period of time. That's been great.
Yeah, and another part that I am curious about is how the science, but how does CBD actually help with inflammation in the body?
Well, I can't really talk about inflammation either, because that's a hot button issue actually. But I can say that what's remarkable about CBD is that it doesn't just affect how things bind to the CB1 receptor and the CB2 receptor. I saw one recent review paper, and they counted about 65 different biochemical changes that CBD can happen at different levels. And so the interesting part about it is how many different ways it works. So the things it does, you never quite know whether it might be changing an enzyme effectiveness, it might be interacting with a different receptor. Most drugs that we take, they do one or two things at one or two receptors in the brain or body. The interesting part about CBD is it has a wide array of tools to work with. And since it's affecting the endocannabinoid system, you can almost picture the endocannabinoid system like a giant octopus with a bunch of arms that reaches all around the body and can kind of just have little dials to slightly change the levels of whatever's happening in that area. And so CBD seems to help that control system work better for balance, and it has many, many tools on how to do that. And so pharmacologically, CBD is just a fascinating drug, and we're still learning a lot about what it does all by itself, let alone what it does when there's some other cannabinoids present and some other terpenes present. So as far as fields of science, when scientists say, or when government officials say, oh, there needs to be more scientific studies, it's like, yeah, that's true. Everything needs to be studied more. But there are tens of thousands of papers on this. If a grad student is trying to get the grasp of the endocannabinoid system, it takes them a year or two of straight reading of the scientific literature out there to get a general idea of how big this system is. And so, until those scientists have until those government officials have read those papers, they shouldn't be calling for more science when there's more science than one person can really grasp in a year's worth of time. There's so much that's been done. And I think the fascinating part is a lot of that doesn't really affect what advice people should be getting. Most of the advice here is find what works for you, experiment with what works for you. I know that if you're looking for regular marijuana that you can smoke and use, studies have found to find the best strain that works for you, you smell it. For all the different ways we can try to decide which one is going to fit with your system, your nose knows best. And so if this one smells like it's going to be the most helpful for you, it probably is in general.
Cool. And then I don't see any more questions coming in from the live feed, so I got one more question for you as far as everything you know with the science behind CBD, marijuana. What is your sweet spot? Don't have to answer the question if you don't want, but sweet, I'd say like daily routine for CBD or marijuana or a combination. I never got asked that before. That's really sweet. I'm not great about taking things in general. Like my wife doesn't put it out, I kind of forget. Yeah, I'm just like my mother. Like I'll look at those pile of pills, but they don't do good if I don't take them. That's the nice part about being at a company is that I keep that 6X right by my desk, and then I remember it. So usually I start off the day with a nice shot of 6X, so probably 30 milligrams, and then end the day with that as well. Is 30 milligrams a whole dropper?
Depending on which dropper you're using on the different bottle sizes, yeah. And I usually take a 6X just because there's no reason not to put more cannabinoids in your system if you can afford them, and luckily I'm at a place where they flow. And for people who they're not sure how much this is affecting their system, they want to keep taking it, I do think the Hemp Complete is the really fascinating one, because it being half CBD and half CBD acid, you're just doing so much more. There's only a couple hundred papers about CBD acid out there, but we do hear a lot of people calling in and saying that Hemp Complete is one that really made the difference for me. And so if you don't feel any difference between the two of them, it might be worth it having one that's half CBD acid.
I'm excited to try that.
Yeah, and the two that he's mentioning right now, those are the identical two products that of theirs that we keep in stock here as well. And the 6X is the one that I use on a daily basis also.
Nice.
That's good stuff. The new batch we just got tastes much better too. I'm not sure what changed, but
yeah,
there's got a batch like maybe 6 months ago, and again, I don't really care about what stuff tastes like as far as if I know what it's gonna do to me internally. But the new batch tastes a lot better, so I was kind of surprised about that. It's doesn't taste quite as potent, even though it still is.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We have people calling about that. There is variations to taste. We keep things as consistent as we can, but it's botanicals, and depending on a lot of different factors, the terpene levels change and things like that change. So it's never going to taste exactly the same, and in some ways, nor should it. Plants aren't supposed to be exact clone copies in every single aspect.
Sure.
And so we're within a very narrow range of variation that can affect the taste, but in terms of the potency and what's actually getting done, it seems like everything should be working the same.
Cool. Any more questions?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Well, hey, everybody, we want to thank you for tuning in. If you are one of my patients and you come in here and ask me a question about CBD and weren't watching, you know where I'm going to send you. So we'll be saving this video. It'll be posted up on our YouTube channel as well as our Facebook page. We switched over to doing these live webinars this year because we understand how everybody's schedules are super busy and it's hard. We used to do all these only in office and didn't video them, just made them exclusive events. and we're changing it up a little bit this year. We're going to be doing everything through live Facebook feeds. That way we still have record of the video, and you can watch all this stuff at your own time, share it with your friends, family members, and so on. And with that being said, if you do watch this video, now that we're shutting down the live feed, still post your questions in the feed. If I have an answer, I will answer it. If not, I'll shoot Lex here an email and get an answer, and we can just keep the thread going. But thank you for all the people who did tune in, and hope everybody learned a lot about this hot topic that's been going around.
All right, thanks so much.
Absolutely.
All right, thanks everybody.